Rebooted. Welcome, everybody, to a very special episode of Reboot It, where the Reboot Crew takes on the studios. Because, for not the first time in the history of Reboot It, but the first time since we've been back up and running, we have got a compare and contrast on our hands. Because if you remember, we rebooted Superman back in season 2, and now so has James Gunn. So let's get into it. Us versus them. Who did it better? I am producer Bill for the Reboot Crew, and this is Rebooted.
Woo!
We got here, guys.
So, gentlemen, we'll go quick around the horn. We, of course, have from Doug Defends, Mr. Billy Business.
Happy to be here.
Below me, we have Ed Greer from The Greatest Pod.
What's up, guys?
And his co-host on The Greatest Pod, Mr. Ron Swallow.
Subscribe. Ding.
Hit the bell. Hit the bell.
And, gentlemen, we all saw Superman.
Yes, we did.
I know you guys all saw it together. I went and saw it with my own crew because I live in the South Bay. You guys live in the Valley. And if you don't live in Los Angeles, that means nothing to you. Just figure we're in two different states. That's basically how this works.
different worlds completely.
Yeah.
But for
2.5 hour drive.
Yeah. I'm not messing with that. Even for Superman, I just want to ask off the top, before we even get into our reboot and the glorious history thereof, what'd you think of the movie? Top level thoughts. Like it, didn't like it?
I really enjoyed it.
Okay.
Super enjoyed it. Like Superman enjoyed it.
All right, very good.
I
you
would
want
go
more
since
stops?
How in depth are we getting here?
Yeah, because I mean, you said top level. I'm just gonna say I really enjoyed it. I'm sure there's some things at some point when I see a second or third one that I may be able to nitpick, but for the most part, I feel like it's the first time I've been happy with a Superman movie since I was a baby.
I mean, that's the kind of top level thought I'm looking for. So yeah, just around the horn real quick, that, one sentence or two, how are we feeling coming out of it?
I would go with I loved it. And even some of the things that I was a little nervous about that I had texted Ron separately a couple weeks ago, I was like, I'll wait for the context of the film. And the context of the film, I was like, yep, I'm totally fine with it. So yeah, I loved it. Everything. It would no nits to pick from me.
Ooh, interesting. Ed, you and I are the notorious nitpickers. So tell me, any nits worth picking?
Like, it was, as a professional nitpicker, this one was tough. This one was like scaling a sheer wall. You're trying to find handholds where it's not good, and you're like, it's so smooth. I'm falling to my death. You know what I'm saying? it really is smooth. I mean, obviously, I would, the engineer is in there in like almost name only in a almost Cassandra Cainian way from Birds of Prey or whatever, and even that couldn't stop me from being like, yeah, fine. That's what she would be in this story anyway. Forget it. Go. Let's keep it moving. I want to see more Superman in. I want to go here. I want to go there. Let's go. And it just sweeps you like a rushing river. That's what I would say. The movie's like it sweeps you away. And at the end, like, the people I was with, the Reboot Crew here, Sanju, and Doug from Doug Defends, we were watching it. And man, like, people were like talking and doing stuff afterwards, and I was still like transfixed looking at it and realizing what had just like happened. You know what I mean? And I haven't felt that way in a really long time. Professional nitpicker, I definitely haven't felt that way in a long time.
I'll agree with you. I think it was an overwhelming experience of like, holy shit, that was a whole lot of movie. And like, and I say that in a very positive way. I frankly actually have some nits to pick, believe it or not, but we don't need to make it all about that.
What?
I'm just saying, there's No, I had a great time with it. I was actually in a really hot crowd too, like just a sold out crowd of nothing but geeks, and people
Yep.
were losing their minds. And I love that.
Yep.
Like that's why you go to the movies.
Yep.
So as we proclaimed at the top of the show, we are going to compare and try to decide at the end of all this who did it better, us versus James Gunn. No disrespect to Mr. Gunn, but like, we are professionals and rebooting is what we do.
I mean, we did it 5 years before he did, to be fair. So,
and so this is going to be, if you've watched our show before, this is going to be a little bit more like a rewind than a true Rebooted. But hopefully it'll have a little bit of its own flavor, because we are going to want to pull apart the new movie in addition to pulling apart what we did previously. So consider this a spoiler warning. If you have not seen Superman by James Gunn, that's okay. But if you don't want to be spoiled, and honestly, you probably don't, go see the movie and then come back and watch us. Click us onto your watch later. Click the 3 dots at the side of the screen and save us for after you've seen the James Gunn Superman. So the first thing I think we should do to really set the stage, let's watch a little bit of a recap of what we did with our Superman movie. And then maybe we can try to recap the craziness that we just saw and go from there. So take it away. Here we go.
Cynical globe-trotting reporter Lois Lane and up-and-coming reporter Clark Kent independently chase a link between the U.S. government's Cadmus project and the criminal syndicate Intergang, armed with sci-fi weapons like the Metallo-Cyborg and Bizarro drones. Lois and Clark's paths collide at Lex Luthor, the only man smart enough to communicate with an ancient alien satellite pulled out of orbit in the 1950s, codename Brainiac. From there, it's a race against destruction as the 2 most powerful minds on Earth battle to control or destroy the planet, with Superman and Lois barely able to keep up. It ends with Superman pushing the moon back into orbit, only to be attacked on the lunar surface by a power-mad Lex wearing Brainiac like a suit, a fate from which Superman will have to save him in an act of ultimate compassion.
There you go. And I guess another plug, if you haven't watched all of our DC reboots, what are you doing? Because it culminates in a giant Justice League reboot from which we just pulled that video.
Yeah.
oh yeah, that was peak Reboot It too. So if you're new to the show, go back and watch it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that was stirring.
So I think, first of all, like, let's just compare and contrast. I mean, if I can try to do a quick, similar summary, James Gunn's Superman finds a Superman in a very similar position to what we talked about in our reboot, where he is operating in a world that is a little bit bigger and a little bit more overwhelming than maybe he even thinks it is. But he's guided in his mission by a message from his Kryptonian parents, the last thing he has from them, telling him that he is meant to do good and help the people of Earth. And that's what he's doing. But in so doing, he also got involved in a developing land war in Asia, which you never do. And he has found himself in the crosshairs of Lex Luthor. Lex Luthor, in this version, is a military contractor who is essentially running a giant control room, programming a masked man called Ultraman to fight Superman, alongside the engineer, a woman with nanites for blood who can sort of liquid metal her way into anything. And then a couple surprises, including the Hammer of Baravia, which turns out to be Ultraman in disguise. And then a pocket dimension he created where he has Metamorpho to create kryptonite. So when Superman turns himself in over the shenanigans with the war, Lex Luthor is able to imprison him with kryptonite in this pocket dimension. And from there, Lois Lane enlists the help of Mr. Terrific from the Justice Gang to break him out and stop Lex Luthor's plan to, I guess, destroy the world with a transdimensional rift. I'm not doing a great job with this recap, but that's essentially it. And the big emotional crux of the whole thing is that Superman, or Lex Luthor, finds out that Superman's message from his parents was only the first part in a larger message, essentially telling him to be a Viltrumite, if you've seen Invincible, and take over the world and rule it with an iron fist to recreate Krypton in his own image. I thought the movie was weirdly, they kind of threw that on the table and then ran away from it. We never addressed it again, but that kind of crushes Superman's resolve, and he has to go and rediscover or rekindle his reason for being. All the while, essentially on a rescue mission to rescue Crypto the Superdog, whom Lex Luthor has kidnapped after breaching the Fortress of Solitude. And if it sounds like Lex Luthor is doing a lot in this movie, it's because he is. This movie essentially was like, what if we took everything Lex Luthor has ever done on screen and just put it in one movie?
Yeah.
So-
And I would just have one addendum to your synopsis. The thing is, the overall plot seems to be obviously kill Superman, become the biggest military contractor, have all the power, yada yada yada, and be able to traverse all these dimensions and jazz. But because he uses like shoddy science and he's so expedient, you know, he wants everything to be so expedient. He's like ripping the world apart just to do these like land schemes, to go back to the 1970 whatever one, where he's doing a big land scheme to make Lexoria or whatever over
Yes.
someplace, to annex a whole country and have his own, his own country. And it's just like, you're right that it is everything Lex ever wanted to do poured in one movie. That is interesting.
But then he
Well,
says,
and I
at
also
the end,
want to say,
which I love. Sorry, but he does say,
No, go
he's
ahead.
like, yeah, I get billions of dollars from this war, and yes, and country and everything. But really, if I really just got one thing, it's that you're to blame for it, and I can get rid of you. Like, everything does funnel all the way back to his hatred of Superman, no matter
yeah.
what it is.
He says explicitly, like, I started a land war in Asia just so I could get to you, not the other way around.
Yeah.
Well, and
Go ahead,
also
man.
I think it's interesting that the movie starts with Superman getting his ass kicked. Like, you see, that's the first scene, is him getting his ass kicked, and it sets up a scenario where you go, oh, Superman isn't invincible in this movie. So you immediately add that there's danger in there that you didn't expect from a Superman movie, which is one of the things that most people who are sort of like peripheral Superman fans complain about, is like, oh, it's so tough. Well, what's the point? Like, there's never a challenge for him. Okay, well, now there is. We just set it up. There's a challenge. And
I think one thing that's interesting too is, and we'll see like the difference between our reboot is, I feel like we did a traditional 3-act structure, which is, that's what you would do, right? Whereas this movie, I was like, this feels more like a 5-issue comic book arc, where there's almost like 4 different climaxes, and I could tell you, like, this feels like the end of this issue. Then there's the issue where he goes to the pocket dimension, and then he does the fight there and gets out. That's the end of issue number 3. Then issue number 4. So to me, it was like, it felt less like a movie and more like a comic book run, like live action, which is maybe why I forgive some of the, like, it's so bloated, it's so plot. I'm like, sure. But also, if you look at it through that lens, like, it makes a little bit more sense.
I will say one of the similarities that I really enjoyed, and that I think Ed and Bill both mentioned in our old Reboot It, is that we wanted to make sure Lois Lane was a part of this whole thing, of solving the issues and helping out. And I felt like Lois Lane was 100% part of this movie, and like really did work that was important that she do. Like, you know, she helped solve the whole fucking thing, really, when it comes down to it.
I want to seize on that, because I think that might be a good jumping off point for our compare and contrast. I think they, as far as casting, might have bettered us on Lois. You know, we, as you saw in the reboot, or the recap of our reboot, we chose Saoirse Ronan, which is a choice that I still stick behind. But I do think that in this type of movie, this sort of 5-issue arc compressed into a 2-hour movie that Billy was talking about, I almost feel like an actress of Saoirse Ronan's sort of caliber and seriousness might have felt out of place. And look, realistically, like, Rachel Brosnahan was destined to be the greatest Lois Lane ever from the first episode of The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. So like if you didn't think that, you're off. And frankly, I'm disgusted that her name didn't come up when we were doing our reboot.
Yeah.
But I will say, in a compare and contrast situation, Gunn may have hit that one further out of the park than we did. I loved Rachel Brosnahan in that role.
Well, and also, get ready for the censor button. We got a Superman that fucks. You know what I'm saying? Huh?
Dude,
That
Ron,
shit was that was sexy ass stuff, guys.
when he lifted her up on the counter, that was literally what ran through my head. Oh, this Superman fucks. Like,
Yeah, 100%, dude. And it felt like cool. You know, one of the things that I think we've talked about and I've heard on other podcasts talk about is how unsexy all superheroing is.
yeah.
It's like, and I know part of this is selling to kids and stuff like that, but kids aren't fucking stupid. They know their moms and dads make out. You know what I mean? Like they're and when you're an adult, you like you take it a step further and be like, I know what else they do. But like, you could still see like people being romantic together and feeling like an intense love and attraction, and that still be part of the story and an important part of the story too.
Ed and Billy, what are your thoughts on Lois Lane versus Saoirse Ronan, or Rachel Brosnahan versus Saoirse Ronan, and how Rachel Brosnahan did in the new movie?
Tough to say how Saoirse would have done, because I do think she can play lighter. I think she would have been great. That being said, like I can't my favorite scene in the entire movie, and I even said, I was like, I could have watched 2 hours of just that scene.
Yeah.
Was the interview, the mock interview or whatever with her and Clark at the beginning. I was like, the chemistry is just so palpable. I believe that they've been dating. I believe that they love each other. I believe all of it. I think like the way that she's a mad dog reporter and she can't help herself, like it was pitch perfect. So I can't say that we were wrong, but also now that I've seen Rachel, I'm just like, yeah, that was a great choice. Like he knocked it out of the park.
Yeah. I can say that we were wrong. She was just too fantastic, honestly. And she like is pretty in a way that isn't like, it's not Margot Robbie as, Lois Lane or something. And it's not like this kind of forced trying to make her mature and cool that the Amy Adams casting was. You know what I'm saying? And I don't want to say forced because these nerds use forced in all these terrible ways. What I'm saying is, though, this like, oh, so serious. No, she's this an irreverent person with an indestructible bodyguard. She would act a certain way. And it's what she does in this movie. Just intrepid, going here and there, doing everything, getting in all these crazy things. And the scene with her and Mr. Terrific, honestly, that's like one of my just like showstoppers. And I have never liked Mr. Terrific, and I'm not doing this weird performative thing that certain nerds of color do about characters that kind of suck, and then you have to champion them or whatever. I didn't like him. I thought he kind of sucked. I thought as a legacy character, this old gimmick sucks. Fair play, blah, blah. You suck. The T-mask, baby, and them T-spheres, and how he was like, oh, man, I'm here with a bunch of emotional losers who can't think on this quantum level like I do, but I got to tag along with them to make sure that X, Y, and Z happens. And it was just like, he just felt this responsibility for Lois Lane. Lois Lane was going to go get killed. And he was like, I can piss off Guy and help this lady not get killed. That's as good a way to spend an afternoon as any, you know what I mean? And he just did it. And that just blew my mind that it was that instead of, oh, this sacred mission and all this. No. I'm going to kill a Wednesday. Oh, and I'll save the world because that's my life. Because I live in this world with Superman and Lex Luthor.
Yeah, I want to come back to that because I know that's something that you and I, Ed, talk about a lot. This idea of the DC universe being this over-the-top sci-fi place where just mad crap happens, and James Gunn got the memo, possibly too much. I mean, that's the thing that I've seen in some reviews that holds true for me is like it may be one goofy step too far, But I don't want to get off of Lois Lane just yet. I will say, I'm going to throw this out to the group. This is one of my nits that I'm going to pick. I think Rachel Brosnahan did more with the role than the script even gave her, because in her performance, I got this sense of her wrestling with this idea of like, now wait a minute, you've got the most powerful man on the planet, but he's like dressing up like a dope on the regular to steal my headlines by essentially running a scam on the entire world. And like, yeah, he fucks, but also, is that cool? And I felt like there was this whole subtext to that interview scene that you were talking about, Billy, where she was almost trying to figure out, like, should I be okay with this? Like, this might not be okay. Like anything that this guy is doing. And I would have loved if we would have gotten one more scene that wasn't played for laughs, where she actually was able to externalize that a little bit. Because in the two scenes, there was the one where the fight with the fifth dimensional imp was happening in the background, which I was dying through. I mean, dying.
Yeah, hilarious.
But also took a little bit away from the severity of the conversation, where like theoretically Lois was sort of buttering him up to break up with him. And then he's like, yeah, I'm going to go turn myself in. So it kind of distracted from that. And then she had the scene with Mr. Terrific where she was kind of trauma dumping on him, and then he just gave her the stone face, which was a hilarious moment. But again, I feel like she brought so much to that role that could have been more centered in a movie that maybe was a little more centered on the relationship between the two of them. But all that said, like, she was fantastic.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, like I said, one of the things I liked the most was just that I felt like she was part of the movie, and sometimes it feels like they put Lois Lane not part of the movie. And I will say this, I love that she was going to go after Superman by herself.
Sure,
she was going to go do it.
I mean, that's a classic Lois thing. To be fair, that's a she's often doing that in most media. But I think I believed it from Rachel Brosnahan in a way that
there you go.
Don't always believe it. You know,
there you go. Yeah, I definitely agree with that, because there's some of these. I mean, they're all sticks. These Lois Lanes, they're all sticks. Superman can lift 57 tons. This chick's got to be 110 exactly. All right, fine. Yeah. But as one of those, she's one of the best ones. And as far as an actress, just killed it. Super killed it. And I believe their dynamic, and even like Billy talked about chemistry, like their physical dynamic, like when he would pick her up and stuff, I was like, oh man, this is exactly, this is being a dude.
I mean, I will say that, like, as a great appreciator of the Frank Quitely Superman, that size dynamic of Superman being just like this statuesque dude and Lois being this tiny little Spitfire, and him being able to handle her in that way is so visually important to me. And I had tears in my eyes kind of seeing that on screen for the first time. It was fucking amazing.
You know, one thing that I think actually, you know, it's one of those things where it's like they pushed each other, but I think one thing that made Rachel's Lois believable in the relationship was that they allowed David's Clark to get agitated, not mad, not angry, but I loved that, you know, like, think about, and I'm not here to crap on the Snyder stuff, just as a comparison, but it's like Henry Cavill's Clark was just like, he put that Lois on a pedestal, and it always felt like he was just like, I'm not good enough for you, Lois, in a way, you know, like their relationship was very just like, there's nothing here. Like, you tell me you love each other, but I don't see it. Whereas, like, I loved the banter between Clark and Lois, but they allowed David to also be like, I told you that in confidence. You know, that gets me. And that part is what it helps Lois's character, because now we know, like, she doesn't give a shit that he's the most powerful being in the universe. She will push his buttons, to your point, Bill, because she's annoyed that he's interviewing himself, you know?
Yeah, throwing softball questions too. You could hit any ball ever thrown at you, and you're throwing softballs at yourself.
Right. So
they allowed Clark to be a human. That's and that
yes, there you go.
Lois,
that's
you know.
I want to go deep into that, but let's start it off. Speaking of David Corenswet was on our short list when we were talking Superman casting. So here's a little flashback of that for you.
I will say this, I think the easy answer is an unknown, but the one that's been floating around online, the kid from the Netflix series The Politician, David Corenswet, I gotta say, I like his look a lot, and I like what I've seen of him on camera, and I think he could bring the kind of glib confidence that we need out of our Superman character.
Oh, he does look like a hybrid of like Tom Welling and Christopher Reeve meshed together. It's kind of weird.
His look is bizarrely perfect. He's tall. He would need to bulk up, but so did Henry Cavill when he got cast. And I feel like he has a niceness, a playfulness about him naturally that Henry Cavill just does not. And I feel like it's kind of an upgrade, really. There's
actually like some fan manipulations online of him kind of in the Henry Cavill Superman suit. And I see it. Like that's a really good pick.
Wow. Dang. Wow. God, me with
I mean, it's no Adam Driver, but
I also feel like you could tell by the quality that it's like so early in the pandemic that no one knows how to record at home yet. So.
wild looking ourselves in the faces in that far away time. But yeah, so to Ron's point, our final picks came down, as you saw in the reboot recap, to David Corenswet and Adam Driver, which I feel like might on the surface appear to be two wildly divergent castings, but I do feel like the Superman we ultimately got from David Corenswet is very in line with the Superman that Adam Driver could have played. All that to say, David Corenswet as Superman is the best part of this freaking movie. I mean,
by a country. You know what's funny? I was thinking as I was watching the recap the other day, our recap with Adam Driver, is like, I could actually see him now as Lex Luthor, like taking that Kylo Ren energy with the script that we had. Not to take away anything from Nicholas Hoult, but I'm just like, oh, that energy actually would have fit this Lex more than it would have fit. So that would be one of those IMDb trivias where it's like Adam Driver came in to read for Superman and they liked him so much that they actually offered him the part of Lex Luthor,
Yeah. Honestly, yeah. We'll get into the Lex Luthor of it all, but let's take a moment to appreciate David Corenswet's Superman.
Just amazing.
It's too early to say, but like I'm on the verge of saying he might have surpassed Christopher Reeve. Like just a freaking home run.
And can we please, okay, you know me, I come with sports metaphors in this dork show. So there's like 30 minutes of like just static in certain people's ears. You know what I'm saying? But like, bro, if you kept a record for 50 years, that's quite enough, soldier. Go rest in Valhalla. You know what I'm saying?
100%. Yes. It felt like that, man. It felt like, oh my God, Christopher Reeve, we can put Christopher Reeve's spirit to rest because somebody finally got it. And whatever the combination between James Gunn and David Corenswet was, I don't know how to communicate the feeling of you're watching this movie. And like I said, even I had some nits to pick, but the one thing that there was not even a second of doubt of like, no, this guy is Superman. Like everything just rang so true. In a movie where he is featured in almost every scene, I just found myself wanting more of that character. And I walked out of the movie feeling like, oh, we got a full story. I was very satisfied. His arc came full circle, but I'm like, let me see the next thing he's in, because if you're going to build the DC universe around this guy as Superman, that feels like a really solid anchor for what you're going to do going forward.
I said when we walked out in the parking lot, I was like, after watching him as Superman, I'm like, I don't even want Batman for like a really long time, like let Superman be the guy, because I would rather him pop up and everything,
And
Ed had a great point though.
Well, this might be the same point because Ed and I are often on the same page. I was going to say, Mr. Terrific was Batman in this movie. And so you already got a little bit of the flavor of what that team up would look like. And I want it. I don't know.
Yeah. and it is like I just I think in the parking lot I was saying that like the thing that I thought after seeing this movie was number one, some of the, like Billy said about the hand waving and the fast way that it was moving and the goofiness at certain parts. And just like, yeah, I'm gonna go rescue my dog from super prison. My girlfriend's gonna go get a guy from the Justice Gang to get in a T-sphere and go to Florida and beat some guys up to go into the dimensional rift to get me after I. Come on, guys.
For sure.
But that's comics, baby.
Yeah.
That's comics, baby. And it's one of the few things I've literally ever seen. Things like Endgame and Infinity War are this too, that this kind of embrace comics. Like the stuff that happens in comics, the crazy, like, oh, we got to go talk to Tony Stark and we get him away from his kid to invent the time machine so we can do our mission. What? what are you talking about? That's crazy. That's comics. And there was that, and this compounded so many things. And last things I'll say, this is that jump off for a DC universe, and people have compared it to like things like Iron Man. And I've heard people be like, oh, well, it's no Iron Man, but bro, man, this thing is so much more expansive than Iron Man. It had so much more on its shoulders. And frankly, on some levels, so much more in its comic book mind than something like Iron Man. So like, show respect. If you're one of those people who doesn't like it, I respect you. But for all of us who like it, let's get on board with this being up there with those greatest starter universe movies. There ain't no, if your mind instantly takes you to Iron Man, look what this thing is doing to you, baby.
Yep, you're already thinking about the
like,
start of a franchise.
Mm-hmm.
But go ahead.
Like David Corn Sweat. They allowed him to be, and this was something that you pushed hard for in ours, and without having a script, because we're just pitching a concept, it's hard to know what balance it was struck. But like, you were adamant that it's like there should never be a question of whether or not Superman wants to do good. Like he doesn't question, do I save this person or not? Like and I do feel like that theme came across so much more. And I don't know if it was David or the script or a combination of both, but it's just like he has a pureness to him that I was just like, I believe that you would choose to do the right thing, like wake up and choose to do the right thing. And this Superman acknowledging like, hey, I get scared and I mess up all the time, but I still choose to do the like good, and that makes me human. Like that to me was just like, and there it is. That's why we watched this,
Yeah. Good. Oh, well, the thing that one of the lines that happened around that time that really with the dog thing was because one of the things that I think about with Superman is the empathy part. He cares about what people are going through. So when he takes a moment, and I'm literally about to tear up thinking about this because it's so cheesy, but it's also so great. And it's so into what I love about comics and what I love about superheroes is that it's never a question that he go do the right thing, but it's also, there's a reason behind it. When she's like, why are you going to go get the dogs? Like, he's alone and he's scared. Like, I have to go get this guy. There's no choice but to do the right thing there.
But also, and I think this is key, this Superman has enough of a personality to not be like the Henry Cavill Superman where it's like, he's scared and I have to help him. This Superman goes, yeah, he kind of sucks too, but he's alone and he's scared. Like, I can't just leave him. And I love that. I love that he like has that awareness and sense of humor about it.
Which
Yeah,
like
there was
I
multiple
can't
times.
remember our reboot and well enough, but I feel like we did focus a lot on like our villains and making sure there was square offs and saving people. But I'm just like, one of the things this movie maybe won out over ours, and again, we don't have a script, but it's just like when he stopped and saved the squirrel, like this, like I don't know if we injected enough of just like the goodness and taking the time out from what's happening around us. Like even in that big fight with the kaiju, he stops, turns around, looks in the window, is everyone all right, before he keeps going. And it's, you know, I think in that respect, this movie probably did maybe a little bit better of a job of just like, let's take a second out and focus on characteristics of Superman, as opposed to just like trying to hit set piece after set piece and just going after Metallo or just going after Brainiac, you know?
I will give it all the credit in the world for that it got the characterization so right. I don't think you could do a better job. That said, let's bring it around to theme before we move on to talking about Lex Luthor and all his schemes and the supporting characters. Because I got a little bit of a hot take here. Ed, you mentioned Iron Man before. I think this movie joins such seminal films as Iron Man 2 and The Batman as a story where the emotional heart of the movie is about reconciling with a father figure that gets no screen time in the movie. And what I mean by that is, in this movie, him essentially realizing I can just be the guy that my parents raised and that's enough is essentially the heart of his journey. However, the movie, I think, doesn't do, and this is me, feel free to argue, but to me, it didn't do enough to earn that. Not because, I mean, first of all, I think that this Jonathan and Martha Kent, the only nitpick is Jonathan Kent needed some big old Coke bottle glasses, but otherwise, these are who the Kents should be. Like,
Yeah.
after John Schneider and Annette O'Toole, like pretty Kents, that's not who we need, right? But Superman's entire journey in this movie is like, I'm a guy who is motivated by the fact that, like, I don't know where I come from. I don't know why I can do what I do, but I have this message from the people who sent me here, and they sent me here to do good. And then Lex Luthor rocks his world by translating and saying, no, the message was actually, you need to take over Earth. And now everybody hates me. And it's like, I don't know if I could still be who I think I am, but oh yeah, I'm still the guy that these people raised, and they raised me to do good no matter what. And like, I've been doing good no matter what. And I think the movie portrays that, but it's like you as the audience member have to do kind of a lot of work to connect those dots. I think you could watch this movie and just sort of not get that pretty easily. But I don't know. Maybe that's me. Maybe I just needed it to be a little more lampshaded.
Well, I mean, look, you maybe you're thinking with your producer brain on the like macro, like a bigger level where you're thinking about what other people might be thinking. I think all of us got that. Like, I mean, especially when it goes on that journey, he finds the thing, he feels so upset. Then the end part where he's like play the part of with his parents, and it's those whole thing. You see that journey at the very end. Hey, by the way, this gives away the end. The very end, you see his montage with his actually recognized the parents who raised him, and that's like a pretty beautiful thing that did make me cry a little bit. But you guys know I cry at all good parenting, so.
Well, I mean, you do, for real. I was saying when we were leaving, right? I bet a bunch of those nerds were crying when homeboy, when Pa Kent said, "I'm proud of you." I don't think I could ever be proud of you, or prouder of you than I am. Oh my God! All the nerds who like couldn't hit the ball, couldn't throw the ball, could sitting up in the bleachers reading comic books with the goths and stuff. Hey man, all of y'all didn't hear your dad say he was proud too often, but Superman just heard that from his dad. And it's like a thrill. It's like a thrill to like hear that, like, you're doing good, kid, and you are Superman in that moment. It's really interesting, dude. And I as far as the Kents, I totally agree that this is one of the greatest times where it's like these people could not have produced Superman. That's
Right.
what's so beautiful about it.
Right.
That's what's so beautiful about it. Because they did. Because they did. They couldn't have biologically made him, but they did make him.
And this is the thing, right? Like, I'm not actually criticizing any of the notes that the movie hits. I think just my screenwriting brain just wants like an extra scene somewhere in the movie before the sit down in the heart to heart with Pa Kent, where he's like, you know what, I am Superman. It's like you want to create the context that, like, as a 15-year-old kid, he's a little bit emo, which, you know, we know he was because he was listening to emo bands. But this idea of like, I don't know why I'm here. Why am I here? And the Kents, being these simple farm folks, don't know what to tell him. And you know me, I'm a long time, not defender, but sympathetic to Jonathan Kent in Man of Steel, just kind of being like, I don't know what to tell you, man. And like, I think that movie played that note wrong. But I like the note of like 15-year-old emo Clark Kent who can fly into space being like, why? Like, why? What am I doing? And his dad kind of being like, I don't know what to tell you. You got to figure that out for yourself. And then it's like, oh my God, I have a secret message from my birth parents, and they've told me to come here and do good. And creating that as like your central lodestone for your identity, and not realizing that your identity was actually shaped by these people who lived with you every day and like brushed you off when you got dirty and yada yada. I don't know. I just feel like the movie could have made a lot more of a meal of that without adding too much to it. It felt almost conspicuous in its absence.
Okay. I mean, one
Yeah.
scene where he actually says something like, I don't know, but just be yourself and you'll do great. Being yourself is the key to it, or anything like that.
I think it needed to be, yes, but I also think it needed to be a little bit in contrast to him actually sitting down and saying, hey man, I couldn't be prouder of you, because he's overwhelmed at the idea of like, what should this kid do? I don't freaking know. I'm a dumb farm hick, which isn't even meant to be pejorative, but it's like, that's just the reality. Right.
Yeah.
And so the idea that like you find your way to becoming a good man, regardless of the whys and wherefores of why you're here, is a very powerful idea. I just think that it was happening in the background of this movie in a way that just felt, again, just weird to me by omission. I don't know. That's one of my,
I mean, it's such a stuffed movie. I think for me, maybe I would have shortened the pocket dimension escape thing a little bit to maybe put a little bit more character in there. If I have to go in there and pick nits. But to your point, like maybe a scene, I don't know, this could have been the wrong take. This could have veered into like Man of Steel territory, but it's just like, you know, he makes a big point about like, I choose to do good, you know, like I choose. It's like maybe challenging that choice, or like, you know, he wants to beat the shit out of Lex Luthor, and maybe he goes a little too far doing something and has to pull himself back and be like, no, I can still choose to do good. It doesn't matter what those people in the message said. But again, it's just like, I don't know. I say that, but at the same time, like one of the things I really appreciate about this movie was like his unwavering stance that doing good was right, and like everyone else just must be wrong if they think that doing good is wrong, you know?
I mean, I can't argue with that at all. To be clear, like that's not where I'm coming from. Like, I don't think he should be questioning whether or not he should be doing good, for sure. But anyway.
No, but you know, one thing I would say, I was disappointed by the Viltrumite angle of Kryptonians, like yet again. That really messed me up, because honestly, this concept that like, I like us being one of the most evil things in the universe. I think that's interesting. And I think us running into things from other universes or other places that are as evil as us is interesting. But the story of the evil empire dropping off their kid doesn't know he's supposed to be evil. I mean, that was a savage dragon, for Christ's sake. That was like a lot of stuff. You know what I mean? It's just, for Superman, it just felt like, hey kid, you know, you go to a fancy restaurant, you don't have a jacket, and they just give you one from the rack so you don't look stupid next to all the other patrons. Putting that on Superman felt like that to me. Like I don't get the evil Kryptonian jazz. I don't like it. And
the only reason why I did actually like this twist on it is, you know, if the Kryptons were so pious that they were like, let's send our baby to Earth and everything, it's like maybe Krypton wouldn't have exploded. I think most of you were egotistical and most of you were the 1% and probably would think that way. And it's just like, and again, I sometimes boil down to this where it's just like, I've seen the other way 3 or 4 different times now. I am fine. Like, let's try something different if we're gonna do it again. You know, like,
Yeah.
I'm not saying don't have Thomas and Martha be murdered. You know, like there are some touchstones, but at the same time, it's like, okay, well, how about how about trying this angle? And I think, if nothing else, it's like, yeah, I don't need to see your Russell Crowe. I don't need to see your Marlon Brando. I don't need Jor-El to be this like guiding light. I kind of like that Superman has to fare this on his own without his, biological ghost AI dad giving him the keys to everything,
Well, as the police car goes by, I will recall from the reboot that I was very adamant about that, about like he be a person, our reboot that is, that he be a person that has like a Viewmaster from 1984 of Krypton, of Krypton stuff.
You definitely
and that's all you got. That's all you got. And that's why you are a Midwesterner. That's why you are a human being, because you're not confused your whole life by this bifurcated existence. You have this mythic vision of what you could be or what your people were, but you are a farmer. You know what I'm saying? Just like any other fantasy story, right? So I love that aspect of it, and the fact that they did that in this too. If you really think about it, yes, he had the palace and all that jazz, but you get a snippet, and that's all you got. They weren't to your point, Billy. Hey, buddy, the section 2 of how you conquer Earth or be a good guy or whatever. Nope, you got a little message that you clutch like a little blankie to your breast, and that's all of Krypton. That was good. James Gunn was thinking like us, frankly.
Oh yeah, no, I think that's right. I just think it was also weird that like clearly that is where James Gunn started with this movie, because it was originally called Superman Legacy. The whole thing with him was he cracked a way in that centered on Superman trying to figure out whether he's more Kryptonian or more human. Like clearly this idea of, all right, I've formed my whole identity around this one Viewmaster view of Krypton, and then I get a broader view of Krypton and it makes me question everything, and I have to decide that I'm then my own man. I think that's where James Gunn started the whole thing, which I think is why it feels a little, I don't know, I still just think it feels a little bit strange that like, yes, all of that is in there. It doesn't feel like the spine of the movie. It just almost feels like some nonsense that happens around the spine of the movie.
To that metaphor, though, go.
I was just gonna say, to my point though, it doesn't feel like the spine of a movie, but it definitely feels like part of a 5-issue arc.
Right. That's fair.
Yeah.
Let me throw this last bit at you. If Supergirl exists, then he should not have any confusion about who's
about to bring that up. Was about to bring that up.
Supergirl literally grew up with his parents, and look, maybe they're changing her origin. I don't know how drastically, since they are like also cribbing from the Tom King run on the Supergirl comics, which is very much centered on the idea that like she grew up on Krypton, saw it destroyed, grew up on Argo City as like this colony away from Krypton, saw it destroyed, and then ended up on Earth after living through 2 like planetary extinctions, essentially. All that to say, Supergirl grew up with Superman's parents in his family. Like, he should be able to just ask her what they thought. So I don't know. That's a little weird.
I don't know.
I mean, there may be
Go ahead.
I was gonna say we may see further conversation about it where he's like, hey, how come you didn't like tell me when I was talking about how my parents wanted me to help people? How come you didn't tell me that they, what they actually thought? And she's like, yeah, why would I do that? Why would I be mean to you and ruin the I mean, because people do that for each other all the time. Like people you see what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
that's a human thing to do.
Also, even even if it isn't all the way that tack, I see where you're going, Ron. I think it's like just because, okay, I'm cousins with somebody. My cousin's dad and mom are straight up white nationalist MAGA. They think that Americans should rule the universe. Da, 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 da. You see where I'm going? And if Clark's parents thought that way, that's not emblematic of all Kryptonian. I don't like this thing of every future society has to become some monoculture. I think that's a specious argument. I do. I think that when we're in the year 3000, there's still going to be tribes stabbing each other with crystal spears or whatever the hell we're going to be doing through binary code at that time. So stop the madness that there's always this monoculture. I think it's very feasible that frankly, Clark's parents were low-key whack Kryptonians who happened to be rich and very influential, even if they didn't have a monetary system, and were able to shoot their kid, like Billy was saying. Shoot my kid, NIMBY, not in my backyard. My kid's not going to blow up in my backyard. I'm shooting him out in outer space to rule stuff. That thought process, to your point, Billy, is insane. That's insane. I'm sorry. That's insanely selfish, insanely like the billionaires of our culture, frankly. So why couldn't it be that Homeboy's parents sucked? And by virtue of fate, he was rescued from them, given ultra power, and by virtue of fate did not get that message and got another better one. And we're the better for it. And the universe was thus changed. I'm going to get a tear, baby. That's great stuff. That's great stuff.
So do you feel like our theme meshes well with their theme? That like what the theme we were trying to go for?
So yeah, I wanted to transition us into talking about sort of the rest of everything, but I think our theme in our movie was very much about Superman trying to cement his place as a person people trust, which again, I think that was part of the movie that we got from James Gunn, but it was a little bit of a different flavor. We do have a clip about the idea of Superman not being trusted that we talked about in the original episode, and sort of like what his arc could be vis-a-vis his relationship with humanity. So let's take a look at that.
They try to have their cake and eat too, and have him save people and have everybody be scared of him.
No,
they tried to have everybody be scared of him.
That is not what Zack Snyder did. Zack Snyder did not focus at all on the human fallout of Superman being there. It was all about Superman questioning whether he should be there or not. You never got the common man's perspective in that movie. They paid lip service to it, but what I'm saying is like Superman should be the 180 of what he was in Man of Steel, right? He shows up and is like, that's it. I'm doing this and everything's going to be okay. And I'm saving everybody. And it's not even a question. And it's the fact that the world is actually rallying to be like, we don't trust you. No, that's not what happens. And the story is about forcing people to trust him. Like everybody learning that it's okay to trust this guy and it's okay to trust again. And that was Christopher Maloney's arc in Man of Steel. And I get that. But that was also such a thin arc that was not even the third most interesting thing in that movie.
Ed, I was coming at you hot, so I'm sorry about that. However, that sounds pretty similar to the movie.
That sounds exactly like the movie that we just got, like to a T. I think that's like, I think you nailed it, which shows me that obviously you know Superman, but that James Gunn knows Superman too, that you guys are thinking on the same level.
Well, and I mean, when we left, that was one of the things that I said was like, I feel like it's the first time in a long time that someone got Superman. Like, like really appreciates the character.
And and you know what? Justice for Homeboy, I can't remember his name, but there was this comment that we kind of savaged on the Reboot Rewind that was like, don't be afraid of Superman's goodness. And yes, Bill, it's such a general stupid note that Bill got in that guy's ass. But it's great that somebody as good as James Gunn could take, you know what I'm saying, could take that sentiment and really actualize it. I think that's kind of emblematic of the difficulty in what we're trying to do. The difference between a script that was developed for months and years versus what we're doing is that it is hard to coalesce these things and make them very apparent in such a short form, even the short form of a movie. So the fact that he was able to take that note and actualize it, it is one thing to say, don't be scared of his goodness. It's another thing to actualize that. And the fact that James Gunn was able to so deftly is a big deal. It really is.
I mean,
let me ask you guys sorry, go ahead, Bill.
No, go ahead. Ask your question.
Oh, I was just gonna. Do you guys think that because when I rewatched our Superman, it didn't feel as funny as this movie is, and I'm not saying that it wouldn't turn into that once we wrote it, but this was surprisingly like funny and lighthearted in a lot of ways.
I think that's actually one of the biggest differences. And it's interesting because, in a lot of ways, to me, this felt almost like James Gunn's most trauma-ish movie since he was at Trauma, in that it really is this collision of high and low art. Like, he does have these themes about identity and romance, but then just also the goofiest, most over-the-top crap shoved in here in a way that is funny and enjoyable and not what you would expect out of a Superman movie. So in terms of like pulling an unexpected tone, I think James Gunn definitely went further than we did.
Yeah. Well, but at the same time, it's that again, spoilers, there's a scene where Lex Luthor shoots a man in the head.
Yeah.
And it is callous and fucked up and a big deal in that movie because it reveals to Metamorpho what kind of person Lex really is. That whatever he does with Lex isn't going to stick to his word. He just shot a man in the head right in front of everybody without like even caring.
Yeah.
I was genuinely shocked by that because I felt like just when we were getting maybe like, no, I'm not gonna say too goofy, but like very goofy, it reminded you like, no, there's still real stakes here. So yeah, I do feel like there was a lot more levity in this one, but again, it's like we didn't write a screenplay, so who knows what we would have interjected. We didn't really characterize something like this runner that Jimmy Olsen just slays pussy like crazy, which is a choice,
By the way, I took it as Jimmy Olsen, asexual king, because he's constantly having women throwing themselves at him, and he's just like, I don't know what's going on here. Like, I don't know.
I'm busy trying to get information.
Those are the character things that like we didn't delve into. So who's to say? But I will say, like, I think for better or for worse, between Superman Returns and Man of Steel and all those, there kind of is like there was this cultural kind of like perception of like Superman is kind of a more serious thing or more intense. So I do wonder what the general reaction will be like. Whoa, this is pretty out there for a Superman movie, but if you're a Superman fan of the comics and stuff, like it's not that crazy,
No. Well, and so speaking of that, let's get into the villains and the plot and all those supporting characters, because here again, there's a pretty striking similarity. I think we talked about, to Ron's point now, a little bit of a more serious and grounded conspiracy tale, whereas this one is Lex Luthor, creating pocket universes and creating an army of super intelligent monkeys to spam the internet, which we definitely
hilarious.
But I love.
That got such a big reaction in the theater. Those monkeys.
I couldn't catch my breath at that because there was just something so genius about it.
But that's one of those things where, like, if we had pitched that during our reboot, you would have been like, "Get the fuck out of here! No way!"
I think like the tonal thing that we were talking about is traditionally, I mean, going all the way back to the first Christopher Reeve movie, like, you think of a Superman movie as being kind of this mythical enterprise, right? And so it, regardless of, what the specifics are, it should have this sort of self-seriousness to it that I do think runs through Superman Returns, Man of Steel. And this one certainly, like, it took itself seriously in that verisimilitude way of like committing to who all the characters were. But when Lex Luthor has an army of super intelligent monkeys, it's not taking itself that seriously.
No.
Who are basically imitating a Russian troll farm. Very funny.
Exactly. So let's take a look. One more clip here. We had a villains pitch that was maybe not as gaudy as James Gunn's collection of rogues, but I think was also heavy on this idea of like, let's throw a bunch of challenges at Superman at once. So let's take a look at that clip now.
Maybe we just make our pitches for villains. And I think part and parcel to villain is going to have to be sort of the broad arc of the movie. And I'll just go with what I already said. I mean, I think it's ultimately Superman is stepping in to stop a conflict that is already happening between the forces of ostensibly good in the world, represented by like the Cadmus Project, maybe even backed by Lex Luthor, versus the forces of call it evil in the world, which is Intergang and maybe some far-flung things happening there. And Superman is the one who comes in and diffuses the problem in interesting ways. And so I think, you know, Cadmus and Intergang, and then subsequent to, or like the punchy villains are probably Metallo on the Intergang side and some weird ass version of Bizarro on the Cadmus side. That's my broad pitch for villains.
Dude. Wild, Bill.
No, we're gonna go even deeper into the Bizarro thing because Billy was on a tip that very much jives with the James Gunn version. But I will say that the final pitch that Ed and I kind of hashed out as far as villains included Lex Luthor essentially like working behind the scenes to communicate with Brainiac in the form of like a space relic that was at a black site somewhere. Which is not all that dissimilar to Lex Luthor having a worldwide network of, you know, alternate reality portals kept at black sites that he was using to coordinate everything. But yeah, I don't know. Let's talk about this approach that like make Lex Luthor the mastermind, maximize what he's doing, and have him essentially coordinating forces throughout the world, both against each other and against Superman. Like that was in the movie that we got, right?
I was kind of surprised. Well, two things. One, and this is my own fault. I should have learned this from many, many years of being burned by these things. I collected all the action figures, the toys, they're on the wall. But Target had this gift set, and it was Superman, Metamorpho, someone else, I can't remember. And you could only get it in the set, but it was Lex, movie Lex, in his green suit. And I just was waiting the whole movie. I was like, oh, those Raptor suits, he's going to put one on at the end. That just never happened. So I actually like, I'm not disappointed, but I kept waiting for, I was like, we're getting pretty deep into this ball game, and he has not put on that suit yet. Sorry,
I wanted to stop you because we have to throw to the clip of me and Ed talking about our final fight scene in our version of all this, which I do think is maybe a little better than what James Gunn did.
I want to see like that super crazy crank it to 11 sci-fi version of Superman. And I think that and the way I would do it is that there would actually be a human presence on the moon. There would be a moon base, you know, with human beings working on it. And it's like Superman comes flying at light speed across the solar system, impacts the moon, and some great explosion, has to do it in such a way that it doesn't destroy whatever humans are on there, gets to the center and just moves the freaking moon. And then it's like the humans find him sort of crawling out of the crater, and he's almost dead. And it's like they try to give him medical attention, but he stands, and in some way in the airless moon, he would have to say, I'm okay, people need help. And then he flies back to Earth having done that. It just, again, that idea of like, I'm going to do something impossible, and we're not going to stop to admire how incredible it is. We're just going to move on to continue helping people.
And my only twist that I would put on it, because I love human fucking beings, goddammit.
Yep.
I think that Brainiac obviously used Lex Luthor and fed Lex Luthor breadcrumbs and made Lex Luthor think that he was the smart one controlling the relationship, but obviously Brainiac really was. And then right at the penultimate moment where Brainiac's about to become the whole world's central computer because of Lex Luthor's bullshit, Lex Luthor goes, oh, by the way, bitch, I was playing you the whole time, and you think you're so motherfucking smart? Well, guess what? You're my exoskeleton body now. and I can go beat the shit out of this guy that's been messing my life up for years. I see him with this. He's stopping trains and saving cats, never aging. Screw you. I'm going to put you on and beat his ass with all of your technology.
I love that. I mean, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that's good.
I'm totally down with that. The only thing. I
got a semi right now.
The only thing that I would want to work into that is I have always loved the idea that Lex Luthor is like the ultimate nihilist, right? And I've never really bought the idea that he's so obsessed with Superman that is his only fatal flaw. Like I think the again,
it's just that Superman's always in his way.
That's the thing,
no,
right?
I don't want to cut you off, Bill, but I think what's built into this thing I just said though is that he the whole movie, we think he's such a nihilist, so obsessed with Superman that he would sell out our planet in order to just beat this alien. But he did not. He did what Batman would do, frankly. He outsmarted the thing, donned its armor, and used it for his own ends so that he can save the Earth from this idiotic alien and this super smart alien. He thinks he's accomplishing both goals by doing. I'm just saying that's what I'm saying. That's how I think this Lex Luthor is thinking. He isn't so much selling our planet to any other intelligence. He's trying to act like he did that and then be the most powerful person on the planet. Once he kills Superman and once he subdued Brainiac, Lex Luthor is the biggest, best, smartest, most powerful, most technologically advanced thing in the world. And perhaps there's some energies flowing through him that makes him, be that super guy that isn't going to be a dumb fat old man when he goes back to Earth. Maybe he's the best version of himself and all that. He accomplishes all those goals with this. Is all I'm saying.
No, I'm totally down with that. I'm totally buying all that. Yeah, I think I kind of think that's amazing, and I think sort of the 3-dimensional chess of it, where it's like Brainiac playing Luthor, playing Brainiac, playing Luthor, and it's like you could really build into the second act of the movie a ton of reversals, but almost in a gentlemanly way.
So there you go. I mean, that was our version of how to get Lex in the suit by the end of the movie. But yeah, going back to what you're saying.
The movie runs like, you were just like, I don't think Lex's thing is just that he hates Superman and that's it. It's like, well, in this movie, it definitely, like, to a fault was that. And I still think, like, as much as I really did like Nicholas Hoult and this Lex Luthor, I still think the best Lex Luthor is Bruce Wayne in Batman v Superman. To me, that is the most convincing Lex Luthor, which is like, if there's a 1% chance that this alien is bad, we have to act. And I was like, man, if you had just given all of Bruce's lines to Lex, that would have been fire. But that's another thing. So I was waiting for the suit. I was waiting for that suit. It didn't happen. It's okay. But two,
I think there's a reason for that, though. I mean, maybe it's a reason I'm making up. But I think it's because Lex doesn't do shit himself. He gets other people to do shit for him.
Sure.
In this movie, that Lex is a guy who that's what he does.
I agree. And he the characterization of him too is just like, he's the pettiest little, man with like, I have power, but I have this meek little voice. I get it. I'm purely saying I was misled by the action figure, and I was like, this movie is going long. But I was kind of surprised, I guess, that my second thing was like, we pitched big villains, Metallo, Bizarro, Brainiac.
Mechanical Spider.
Didn't do that. Like, yeah, like yes, the John Peters staple. Ultraman is not someone that I feel like most audiences would ever know about, think about, and that's what they went with. Kind of similarly in a way that like the Batman Begins, like you wouldn't think like Ra's al Ghul and Scarecrow would be your two out the gate, but there you go. So I kind of feel like with ours, we took a little bit more almost like of a mainstream approach. Like I think we were like, we can't do a Superman movie with just Lex. We've got to put in another like A-list Superman villain, whereas this movie didn't seem as concerned with that.
Yeah, it felt a little in this movie like they were just creating punching bags,
Yes.
Which I don't hate. It's not a criticism, but I feel like they were doing so much that it's like, we don't need villains that actually need pathos. You know what I mean? We're going to have Ultraman, who's Ultraman in name only versus any other version of the character. And he's going to be a non-character until the last 10 minutes. And then we're going to have the engineer, who is a real character in the comics, but like we can just use, sort to Ed's point, sort of a her in name only version. And it'll just make for cool fight scenes. You know, it felt very base in that way.
I mean, once they said that Ultraman, I guess spoilers if you've made it this far into our chat, was just a clone of him, I was like, oh, that's kind of bizarro. Like, you should have just gone for it at that point, you know? Especially if you had a mask on, you know?
Dude, it's
gonna be Bizarro. It's gonna be Bizarro.
Here's the thing. That entire movie was just a giant Bizarro origin story. Because when the clone flies into the pocket universe that apparently manifests by creating cube-like abscesses all over reality and gets sucked into the black hole, like he's coming back in a cube Earth in some way. I mean, come on.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
As long as they don't do it stupid, like I'm okay with it. But it just was so funny. I think we got a good laugh when he takes off the helmet of the hammer of Baravia, and he's still got his mask on. I was just like, bravo. That's why, like, it's almost a little underwhelming that it's just him with long hair. It's like, if you had the mask on too, and you pulled it off, and it was, you know, just a little bit of the Bizarro thing, I feel like maybe that would have hit a little better. But at that point, it's just like, on the other hand, maybe that's just introducing too much.
We just talked about 3-dimensional chess, though. The fact that Kal-El, I'm sorry. The fact that Superman looks like Bizarro when he gets kryptonite poisoning.
Yeah.
And then whatever's going to happen to Ultraman / the clone in the 57th dimension or whatever, he's going to get that look and come back, and that's going to be how we differentiate them. Like maybe he almost dies of kryptonite poisoning and just barely Bizarro's his way out of it and gets back here, and then the sun bakes him that way. Like, hey, if you keep doing that, it's going to freeze that way, you know. And now he's a weirdo. I think they're playing 3-dimensional chess on that. But to your point, I hope it isn't dumb when they bring it back. I hope
just
it isn't.
Don't do the backwards talk, and I can't stand that stuff. I can't.
I mean, with as goofy as this movie got, I wouldn't be surprised if we get
they'll
some
totally be
backwards
like,
talk.
I mean, he'll make it funny too, and it'll annoy us because it'll be like, yeah, we showed him he shouldn't do that, and then he did it, and he did it well, and I hate you.
Well, if I could propose that we talk about at this point what's the difference between our approaches in regards to the action and stuff, because ours was a serious action movie, theirs was sort of a sci-fi romp. I think there's a clear line of demarcation between the type of genres we were actually trying to do. So that being the case, though, I think the one thing that they did that I would say is the sense of whimsy is like sort of superior, and the like sweeping from this to that maybe could be considered that, but like the focused nature of our antagonists and the fact that our antagonists were fighting each other while fighting him, I just think that's really interesting. I think that's really interesting and gives the Earth people more agency, and this makes it larger. It's cooler to me.
I agree. I'm gonna take it one step further and say it's almost like this movie took our pitch and pulled it apart into 2 separate incidents that really didn't have anything to do with each other. So it's like you have the war between Jarampur and Baravia, and Superman getting involved in that political conflict in a way that's sticky and thorny, which was a part of our pitch. But we said that the conflict that he was getting involved in was essentially between like government covert ops in the form of Cadmus and international terrorists in the form of Intergang. And they both were creating super science crazy crap for him to fight. In this movie, Lex Luthor engineers the war, and then his super science crazy crap for him to fight is like a whole other thing. And I do think that makes James Gunn's movie feel a little more, I guess to Billy's point, like a collection of issues as opposed to just a straight story. But I don't know if it's an improvement. And I will say also, just to throw this out there, Metamorpho and especially his baby were like one goofy thing too far for me.
I think that might be the double mumbo gumbo, honestly, because I in the cold light of day, to me, that is the double mumbo gumbo. And now certain people are going to be like, why is Jimmy Olsen with the chick in the alley and they're talking about Lex in an alley and why are you going to go rescue a dog? And those things, even Lampshades it. He's a dog. Yeah, but I save squirrels. So why wouldn't I save a super dog that belongs to my cousin? She's going to beat my ass. What are you talking about, bitch? What's going on? You know what I mean? Like this is the world we live in. These are the stakes, high and low, of such a powerful person. I love all that, but like, yeah, just the seriousness and the focusedness of what we were trying to do with with that sort of thing. I think the action also was I think our climax would have been, just a little bit sicker in regards to overall impact of Superman. But I will say I got the feels when that dust is swirling around and Superman just comes up into that fresh pose. I'm just like, this I don't think I've ever seen a Superman image like that, honestly. I'll go that far. And there was a couple of them that I hadn't seen, like literally holding a whole building off of another building and stuff. All these comic book images that we've been yearning for forever. And they just did them. They didn't just destroy everything. And just the focus, him trying to keep stuff together. We had that in our pitch, but just to see it play out in the James Gunn thing of like putting everything back together to the point where the end credit scene is, oh, this is a little bit off. Like that's amazing.
I want to criticize. I mean, they replaced the sky beam with a dimensional zipper, which didn't feel like an upgrade to me. You know, at least in our movie, we had Brainiac creating a black hole which pulls the moon out of orbit, like into a collision course with Earth, and Superman has to stop that. That was, you heard that in the part of the clip that you saw. Like this whole idea that Lex Luthor essentially creates an interdimensional zipper that's just unzipping the city. I don't know.
Well, and the Earth probably eventually.
At that point, I to go back to Metamorpho for a minute. I think, and I may have referenced this earlier in this episode, but I was like, that was the one part that dragged a little bit, and it was the only part too, the escape in this kind of like interdimensional river of particles, where I had a little bit of a hard time understanding. I was like, I don't get the geography of where we are, and I don't know I 100% understand what's happening.
I also didn't get the danger because Mr. Terrific sets it up as like, oh, these rivers of positrons and they could explode the Earth. And then next thing you know, like Superman's just like drowning in it and
He's
holding the baby over his head.
Which, by the way, like I couldn't even like, and we saw this in IMAX, and like I was like, is he holding the baby there? I can't tell what's happening. So that was the only part, and it wasn't long enough that it got, you know, that I was like really bothered by. It wasn't like The Last Jedi on that casino planet type thing.
Yeah.
But I will say, if I could change one thing, like, you know, I think Metamorpho could have worked a little better if he had been more inspired by Superman to change his mind to do the right thing. I think that might have tied in a little bit closer to like choosing to do good. You know, it just kind of seems like he just does it because we need to get going. But I would have loved to have been, you know, like choosing to do good and Superman being the one to tell him to choose to do good. You know,
something just came to me as like, just if they toss it to me, they toss the ball to me and they say, hey, what do you think about this? I'd be like, why don't we trick these fools into thinking they're getting Bizarro? Because I'd have Metamorpho, who looks like freaking Bizarro, and some sort of thing. The mask cracks or whatever. You see this molten looking candle ass face, and you go, that's Bizarro. But if Metamorpho can make any element in the whole universe, even making elements that aren't of this earth, so he has access to a Rolodex of elements that are not of this earth, correct? Well, what are Kryptonians made out of? Elements. So he could make a approximation of Kal-El with effort and maybe training or a sample, become Bizarro, be able to get into the Fortress of Solitude, yada, 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 then get changed, have his mind changed in the battle, Doctor Strange style, rather than just beating him up and throwing him in a hole. You change his mind over the course of the battle, and you assure him, I will get your freak baby back. I'm not gonna have this goofy ass river rapids thing with him. Screw that. I'll do something cooler than that later. I'll get your baby back. Just help me. And then, boom, you got it. I think that'd be sick. That'd be
I
great for
just
the comic
think
book
too,
fans.
like, and again, I think our pitch was more streamlined, right? Like,
Yeah.
I don't think we would have had a character like I think that's a fantastic idea if you have to have Metamorpho in the movie. You
Right.
can
Yeah, that's what I
easily
mean.
pluck
That's what
him
I mean.
out and just get around all of this. And it was fine that he was in the final battle, like cool.
But
one
I
more
don't want to
person,
interject.
but
I don't want to
yeah.
interject anymore. But this part is where I believe he was a rebooter. Like he used the spirit of Rebooted, because a lot of the movies just sort of have kryptonite or have us find kryptonite. But he in Rebooted, and especially in Bill fashion, was like, okay, we
There's
find
no
Metamorpho. We find there's no kryptonite anywhere, bro. But we find Metamorpho, and he makes the kryptonite, and we put him into prison.
Yeah,
And they
but
just did all
in
the steps.
in typical Rebooted fashion, it's such a convoluted, complicated
that's what I'm
way to
saying.
get one teeny little thing
To
done.
get that one thing.
yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
And to be fair, we
totally,
jettisoned.
totally.
To be fair, we jettisoned those ideas after we give them an interrogated. Like,
right.
But it's just like this is like MC Escher, it's like a or a babushka, whatever the box.
Yeah, the Matryoshka dolls.
Yes.
But also, I mean, like, you could have still had Metamorpho doing the clever, all right, we're going to get kryptonite and a sun in one. But you didn't need to have his little reptile baby. I just felt like we already had Crypto. We already had the super intelligent monkeys. He saved the squirrel. You didn't need that last.
Couldn't he have a
monster in
wife
there.
or a regular kid? Like he just
He did. He had that blonde woman that was like, wait a second, stop the movie. What does sex between you two look like? You know,
I'm telling you, this is.
I'll tell you what it looks like. A lot of orgasms for that lady. I'll tell you. You can make any substance. Come on.
He's got all the elements of a good lover.
But that felt like something that I don't know that it was left on the cutting room floor, but it felt like it was in the script that maybe got cut out of the script, because you had a Stag Industries reference when Superman's having his crisis of conscience, which she's Sapphire Stag. That's who Metamorpho is married to. Her father is an industrialist who turns him into Metamorpho, right? They then have a baby. That's all from the comics. So you had Sapphire Stag in the movie for a single shot, the baby in the movie as plot device, Stag Industries in the movie as just a random reference. I feel like there was like 3-4 pages more of story that they were just like, we don't need all this.
I mean, there were those rumors before the movie came out that James Gunn had to cut a lot of stuff because there were some people that were worried about the movie. So I wouldn't be shocked if like a lot of it was Metamorpho stuff.
Well, we will get a director's cut, I'm sure.
I don't think so, because even the actress that said she's the engineer is like, they also cut me punching Crypto. I was like, good cut. Maybe shouldn't have filmed that, you know? Maybe no.
I will say I found some of the seams to be showing in the writing, just stuff like that, where it's like, oh, they clearly wanted to make more a meal of this, and they just cut it to the bone where it just feels like a plot device. I think the same thing is true of what I was talking about earlier with the Kents and, Superman's whole backstory.
Yeah.
And I think in a lot of ways, sorry, what I meant to say is I think there was an entire scene. So Lex Luthor shoots Molly, the street vendor, wearing a tuxedo. We also don't have an appearance by Maxwell Lord other than a weird TV cameo at the end of the movie. That is not what was rumored to begin with. We don't have an appearance by Sapphire Stag or anybody at Stag Industries. I think there was some kind of gala that Lex Luthor was at with these other billionaires plotting their domination of the world, where we could also see, again, something that's only referenced by Lois when she's talking to Perry White. Criminally underused Wendell Pierce, by the way. But Lex Luthor having this like cult-like following of people who think he's going to save the world or whatever. I think Lois Lane showed up at some sort of black tie gala where Maxwell Lord, Simon Stagg, and Lex Luthor were doing a power broker thing. And she's trying to find out where's Superman. And that's why she ends up at the Hall of Justice the next day after Lex Luthor takes his leave to go shoot Molly. Like, I don't know. To me, like, it was very obvious that they just cut that scene. But, what maybe for the better. I feel like every scene that I saw being cut out of the movie would have just been kind of shoe leather talky scenes, and they clearly didn't want those in this movie. So who knows?
I don't even think,
I mean,
do we
look,
even have like the Kents in our, like, I feel like they just got so many characters in this movie. And for me, like, most of it works, but like, I don't remember talking very much about like Perry or Jimmy, or other than just be like, we know we have to have it, but other than that, you know what I
Yeah, and
mean?
trying to cast them in funky ways.
Right.
I think we concentrated more on like things like if we were going to have a Green Lantern in our movie and stuff like that, which is interesting that they
Yeah.
had the same discussion. You know,
Wait, let's talk about that. This could be kind of our wrap up on everything here. We had a weirdly intense discussion about this because we were doing our Superman reboot on the heels of rebooting Green Lantern. And so we were trying to figure out, should our Superman directly tie into our Green Lantern, which made a Green Lantern cameo or co-starring role like a weirdly salient point. So let's just take a look at that clip real quick.
How does this tie back to our Green Lantern? You know, we spent an entire episode last week trying to reformulate Green Lantern for our version of the DC Universe, Reboot It. So Superman is another alien story. And as long as we're talking about it that way, is Green Lantern a supporting character in this movie?
Yes, he is. So I don't let's just throw that on the table. I actually really loved what they did with Guy Gardner in this movie, and he was a weirdly bigger part of the movie than I was expecting him to be. Thoughts?
I mean, me personally, if I'm gonna have a hot take at this early date, it is that the Justice Gang rocks. I'm sorry, they just rock. We were leaving the theater. Billy was talking about like stuff like Hawk Girl's Hawk Scream. It didn't sound like a person trying to do a Hawk Scream. It sounded like a Hawk Scream coming out of a person. And it's so wildly incongruous and weird. It's awesome. And then like just the T-Sphere, Mr. Terrific with the T-Spheres and the I guess we could talk about that now. Like that fight scene showing that like he has a mastery of like time and timing, and he knows where everything is. He's seeing on all those dimensions, and he can pull things back from this way and that way. It's like if he throws it past you, that doesn't mean he missed, and it doesn't mean that you're going to get hit by the thing coming back. That guy might get hit, and then it comes back this way and hits you, and all this. He just has all the angles doped out, and I found that really heartening, because I do believe that for years it's been hard for people to really show how cool somebody like Mr. Terrific is. And to everybody's point earlier, and what I was going to say about it is this: when Billy said it makes me not want to see Batman for a long time, I want to see a Batman movie with this sort of fidelity, right? With this sort of frequency of Batman. Like this is on the frequency of the Alan Moore, and Grant Morrison type of Superman, where, what do you get for the guy who has everything? All these weird space. That's the frequency that's on. Well, where's the almost Morrisonian or Batman of Justice League frequency, right, of Batman? I would love to see that, and we all would, because we would love to see something that was. I'd love to see an overstuffed Batman movie, like really overstuffed with too much Batman stuff. Like he detected so many times and beat up so many guys, it was too much for me to. Oh God, I would love to see that. I would love to experience that.
I think, like, to your point with like Batman, it's just like what this movie does, which we did not do, I think, kind of purposefully, which was like we wanted to give Superman the center stage and not have other characters kind of lift him up to where he needed to be, in a sense. But that being said, I think the choice of the characters that they used is interesting, because it's just like it did kind of make Superman really feel like he's not new, but he's lower on the totem pole, and he's got to figure out how all these other heroes in the world work. And I feel like it worked for this story. I don't think any of us would have thought of Mr. Terrific. I don't think any of us, even we talked about Green Lantern, like would have even thought of Guy Gardner, because we're like, we're not going to do that. But somehow, like, it fits this story and these characters. Like, I just don't think, like, if you had swapped out those characters with like what is it, the Coach Taylor, whatever, Hal Jordan, if that was the one, and it was Wonder Woman and it was Batman, and those were the three heroes. Like, I just feel like this would have been a swing and a miss. Yeah. So it's just like, one thing this movie did that we didn't, which was like, it went for the lower heroes, but it actually worked, and we don't think like that, or we didn't think like that in ours, you know?
Yeah, well, that reminds me of this point that I was making to one of my buddies, and I was like, "Oh man, I gotta say this on the show."
Yeah,
and it's this Superman is, and not to be the reiterator, but he isn't alone as far as being a hero. But that's so important, dude. All the other movies, even the Justice League movies that were made by Homeboy, are about this God and all of us little ants. And God and the ants have to form some accord, and we have to realize that he's God. No. In this world, there's guys around here that could batter you around. There's guys around here smarter than you. There's all this kind of stuff. But guess what, guys? I'm still the best of you because I'm the best of you. I don't maybe have I have all the powers, but I'm also the best guy of all of you guys. And maybe with my example, we'll drag ourselves into a superhero utopia sometime.
Golden Age.
That's how I think that's how they got around the, like, Superman's boring because he's God and he's perfect. It's like, well, this movie just, like, fine, let's start him pretty much at the bottom of the totem pole. He's like as good as maybe anyone else at best, but it's like even Guy Gardner comes in and he, you know, can clean up stuff seemingly faster than Superman can. And I feel like not treating Superman in this movie like a god and not putting him on this pedestal made him relatable. That's how you do it. It's like, how do you make Superman relatable? Well, just stop looking at him like a god and just be like, look at the human part of him. And I don't know where we would have landed on ours. I feel like we were closer to trying to do that maybe than we were far away from it, but this movie definitely was like, it finally nailed Superman does not, just because he's the, like, invulnerable does not mean we need to put him on this pedestal as a character. And maybe James Gunn's wins out a little bit more than ours, because I still feel like there were 4 fanboys here that were just like, but we want Superman to be up here, you know?
And also James Gunn managed to make it a 4-quadrant motion picture. Not to cut you off, Bill, but it that all that stupid baby crap. Trust me, there were 6-year-olds who weren't bored at some terrorist plot that they couldn't give a damn about. They were quite glued to that. And all the rest of us were like, just sort of waiting it out. But they were like laser focused on all those colors and that cocoa melon ocean that they were floating around in. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, I do know what you mean. That's my thought exactly.
So I'm just saying that he had the acumen to make it a 4-quadrant motion picture. I think ours would also be a 4-quadrant motion picture, but if there's 4-quadrant motion pictures and there's 4-quadrant motion pictures, and this thing is a 4-quadrant.
I think ours was geared towards this demographic right here, and that may have been our.
Well, look, but at least Superman moving the moon back into orbit is fucking dope, and I will stick by our like last fight scene. I think is dope as hell. But in the middle of dope with good fight scenes, there were iconic moments in this movie that I'll literally never forget. Like we all mentioned it, but that coming out of the smoke when he's like, and being this bright beacon in a like a terrible situation, I'll never forget that little moment ever. Like it was beautiful, and it like really hit the inspiration that Superman is supposed to give to everyone who watches Superman do stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think my overall thought on the tone thing, we were making a big blockbuster that was more in the Jurassic Park 90s blockbuster mold, right? Like, you want it to feel a little more realistic and gritty and, feel adult enough that you're not going to lose an adult audience. I think you got to give kudos to James Gunn for taking a swing and saying, I'm making a blockbuster in the mold of like Minecraft and Super Mario Brothers. And that's not an insult. I mean, it's just an understanding of like, what is the marketplace now? And like to Ed's point, big bright colors, a lot of things happening, going quick, don't stop for shoe leather, just show us the really awesome stuff and make the emotional moments big enough to hit. Like this movie did all of that. It's just a different type of blockbuster than what we grew up thinking blockbusters should be. And in that respect, like I I can do nothing but sort of tip my cap, because it's like that in and of itself is a big achievement. Like maybe not to the same degree, but I found myself kind of feeling a comparison to Sinners almost in this movie, in that it's doing weird stuff that maybe shouldn't work, that nobody has really put into the blockbuster formula before, but it's working because they're just doing it with so much conviction. Obviously, two very different movies, but in that respect, this movie recalls something like Sinners.
Yeah, I think the other thing too, kind of final thoughts from me here is like we were actively trying to build a DC universe, and Superman, I don't know if it's because we recorded it a week later after Green Lantern or what, but it very much felt like chapter 2 in whatever we were building, and it was playing off the last thing. And that's not to say that this James Gunn movie is not launching a universe. It absolutely is, but this felt as standalone as these things get. There's no like, oh, is Metallo coming, oh, is Brainiac coming? It's like, nope, what you see is what you get, and this is the end of that. And I do think like that simplicity and more kind of like just about character, I do feel like I am getting fatigued of the like, let's build things out and let's always look ahead and let's always tease the thing that's not in this one for the next one. And there was
And just
none
make
of
one
that
good
in
movie.
Superman. Yeah, and it was so refreshing to like not have to be like, oh, there's the Easter egg that Brainiac's coming. So for ours, like I do feel like that there's a little bit more of like we're trying to build one piece of a giant puzzle, where this felt just like, here's just what the picture is, and there'll be more and these characters will show up, but we're not trying to build towards a Thanos,
That said, I can't wait to see Lex Luthor in Peacemaker season 2, and I can't wait to see David Corn sweating Supergirl. So let's get it going, people.
Yeah.
Oh, come on, John Cena, that got a huge reaction.
Huge reaction. That was awesome.
It's fantastic. There's a lot of really good stuff that we couldn't even hit in here that just like really made me laugh and like, or made me feel stuff. And I think that's my final thoughts is it's such a good movie that so many of the things that I could talk about, I just can't fit in here. Like we may have to do a greatest pod episode just talking about some of the stuff, or a Patreon episode talking about this stuff, because it was so many great moments that really made me laugh or feel stuff that just felt very Superman to me.
I agree.
Yeah.
And then I can get deeper into my nitpicks. It'd be great. No.
Yeah.
As far, I
Go
was
ahead.
going to say for my closing remarks, I would just say I think this is as a champion of tone, and I think a lot of the people who are just so verklempt over whether Gunn was going to make it too jokey and too hokey and all this kind of jazz, it's like you got an invulnerable man who is faithful to his girlfriend. I mean, this is a fantasy doubly over, so like it's a fantasy in all these directions, and to not embrace that is insane to me. It's insane. The basis of this is such a fantasy, and a life affirming fantasy, not some vengeance fantasy of beating people up in alleys or affecting change in these ways. Like Superman is the real deal in this movie, like the real deal superhero, leading by example, caring about the little guy, all of that stuff. And that you doing that with a super serious tone or too comedy tone would be bad, but a nice middle ground, acknowledging the Frank Quitely of it all. When he said he drew that picture of Superman just chilling on the cloud, he's got this stupid looking smile on his face. Why would he grit his teeth ever, really? Even in a lot of average moments, why would he make these faces? He is as calm and relaxed as an invulnerable man can be. And even in cases of giant danger, he knows he's going to be okay, and he wants you to feel okay. there's a tone that goes along with that sort of characterization, and it can't be dour, and it can't be all these things we've seen before. And it can't be too reverent, kind of like the 1978 one was, like this over reverential of him. Of this again, that was the first time we got, Cow God, and I just believe that this is finally the Rock. Finally, the humanity has come back to Superman. You know what I mean? That's what I feel about this movie.
Wonderful final thoughts from all of the Reboot crew. If by this point you haven't seen either James Gunn Superman or our Rebooted and our Reboot Rewind of Superman, what are you waiting for? Go check those out. This conversation means nothing if you haven't seen all that previous material. But let's wrap it up, guys. I want us to give a final, out of 10 score to both our vision of Superman as we saw it 4 years ago, and now James Gunn's vision of Superman. And let's start, because it's fresher in the mind, with James Gunn's Superman. Out of 10, what's our final score? Ron, I want to start with you. What are we doing?
Well, I'm a lover, so we'll say 9.574.2.
We're going to round up 9.6 from Ron. All right. Ed, how about you? What are we thinking?
I'm really up there. I'd say it's in the 8.9, 9.2 range for me. And I fully acknowledge this because I've been starved of a human being as Superman, like I just said.
Yeah. Billy?
I'm not going to do point whatever. I just a 9. It was a 9. And if you chopped 5 minutes off so I could go pee just a little quicker, it would have been a 10. So,
yeah, baby.
yeah, I loved it.
Yes.
Yeah, me too, by the way. I loved it as well.
I also loved it, but I'm going to give it an 8.5. I wanted about 15 more minutes just to flesh out some of the story and make the emotional beats hit a little bit harder. I don't think any of the choices that were made were off by any stretch of the imagination, and I thought the casting was beyond superlative. So yeah, 8.5 from me. So now let's go back and rate our take on Superman as much as you can remember from the clips we saw, and hopefully we all rewatched our reboots coming into this. Ron, we'll start again with you. What do you think?
Obviously a 10.
Love it. Can't argue with that.
I mean, a 9. I'll give it a 9 or a I thought it was good.
All right, Ed.
I think only because I think I would give ours an 8.5 because I felt like the interweaving of the Gunverse just would edge us out in the end of like presenting this world, even though he didn't have a movie before and we did. I feel like even then this movie would be more suited than ours to be the first movie of a thing. And I understand there's a complicated criteria, so that's whatever. But like, that's why I got to give the Gunn guy an edge over ours.
Billy?
Yeah, I rewatched the whole thing. I'm a little less in love with ours. I think we did a great job, but I do think that having seen James Gunn's, there's stuff where I'm like, maybe more, that's maybe more towards my sensibility. So I'm going to give ours a 7.
Okay. I am going to say, I think we edged James Gunn's execution out as much as we could for our pitch a little bit, just in the fact that I think our story was a little bit more tightly constructed. I do think there was some goofy fat on the bones with James Gunn's that I think we would have avoided while still making a really enjoyable and similarly characterized Superman. So I would give ours a 9 versus the 8.5. But all told, because I was just doing a little quick math, we still fall slightly short of James Gunn's vision here in the inaugural episode of Us Versus Them. We're declaring Reboot It lost, baby. We're going with the big guys. James Gunn, Superman.
Losing to James Gunn could be worse,
Look,
Yeah,
James,
if losing means that we got to watch an incredible Superman movie, like happy to lose all day. You know?
Yeah.
and all I'll say is James Gunn all over this Superman. I mean, he made a movie that he wanted to watch, and again, you kind of got to respect that. Like, there are just some wild swings, and for the most part, he connects.
He said in the, we all saw the early Amazon Prime screenings. So it was like a quick introduction. He's like, "This is the movie I have always wanted to make," and it definitely feels that way.
Yeah.
And let me say, guys, you heard Ed mention the mumbo gumbo on top of gumbo mumbo. Hey, get some of our merch. We have a merch store still at T Fury. If you go down in the links below, you can pick up a mumbo gumbo shirt for yourself. Why not?
That Mumbo Gumbo shirt is actually a really dope design, if I do say so myself. You guys should get one.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Well, that is all she wrote for this episode of Rebooted Us versus Them. Next week, we are back in the saddle with a proper reboot. We are closing in on the final couple reboots of the season. But before we get to our big finale, we're going to be back with an Us versus Them for, of course, Marvel's Fantastic Four. That was another reboot that we did earlier in the seasons that we felt very strongly about. And I think there's more of a question mark as to who's going to come out the victor on that one. So we shall see. But for now, James Gunn, we doff our cap to thee. We are the Reboot Crew. I am producer Bill for Billy Business, Ed Greer, and Ron Swallow. We will see you guys next reboot.